A story of greed, bullying, gaslighting, and the ultimate betrayal. What began as a retreat amongst friends would soon unravel into a murder and raise many unsettling questions about betrayal and the greed involved. This story is about a man, Yoon Sang-yeop, who drowned under suspicious circumstances while vacationing with his wife, Lee Eun-hae, and their friends. Initially, the authorities at Gapyeong police station ruled his death an accident, but something about the official explanation didn't sit right with Sang-yeop's family, and that was only the beginning. Welcome to this week's episode. Let's get this video to 10,000 likes because then I'm going to give away some free merch from the Crimes Anatomy store, such as this wine tumbler. I've designed these myself, or any of the other items, and you can pick up to 3. To win, all you have to do is like this video, watch till the end, and drop a comment. The comment with the most upvotes gets the win. Just remember to have your email address on your YouTube account so I can actually reach out to you. Good luck. Oh, and if you don't want any merch, that's fine. I can just send you $100 via PayPal. It's your choice. Let's get into it. When the police initially closed the case claiming Sang-yeop's drowning was an accident, Sang-yeop's older sister, Yoon Mi-seong, refused to accept these findings. She knew her brother. He was incredibly scared of water. Why would he go cliff jumping? Through a mutual connection, she reached out to a detective in the Ilsan-Sibu police station. Her suspicions that Eun-hae was involved in his death and that insurance fraud was at the heart of it all. Even though the case had been closed, the detective agreed to take another look. By early November 2019, Ilsan West police station formally reopened the case, this time treating it as a potential homicide. Let's take a closer look at this case and go back to the date that it happened, which was mostly recorded on cell phones. It's June 30, 2019, a warm, humid day. 28-year-old Lee Eun-hae and her husband, Yoon Sang-yeop, and a group of friends set out for a weekend at the valley in Gapyeong. Known for its waterfalls and calm waters, it's a popular getaway spot for people looking to escape city life. The group booked a pension, a type of guest house in South Korea that blends indoor accommodations with a glamping-style experience. The area was well equipped with camping facilities, grilling stations, and electrical outlets. While it had a natural, scenic feel, it wasn't completely remote. There were bus stops and businesses just a 20 minutes drive away. Alongside Eun-hae and Sang-yeop were their longtime friends, Cho Hun-soo and 5 others, Dae-sul, a friend of Eun-hae, Jun-soo, a co-worker of Hyun-soo's, Yoon-young, Jun-soo's girlfriend, and Hyu-seop, a friend of Dae-sul's. At first, this seemed like a casual weekend getaway, but underneath it all, there were tensions, particularly in Eun-hae and Sang-yeop's marriage. While legally married, they lived separately. Eun-hae stayed in Incheon, a bustling coastal city, while Sang-yeop worked in Suwon. The official reason was the difficult commute, but as more details emerged, it became clear that commute was not the real reason. By 3 p.m., the group had settled by the water, inflating large floating tubes and organizing their supplies. Despite the summer heat, the water was cold. Most visitors had already left, leaving only a few people by the river. Sang-yeop, who had previously admitted that he couldn't swim, climbed onto a tube near the shore. The water was shallow at first, but dropped off quickly towards the middle, far deeper than he could stand. He was visibly uneasy, but Hyun-soo dismissed his concerns and began pulling the tube further out. Sang-yeop held on tightly, protesting as Hyun-soo dragged him deeper. Then Eun-hae shouted, "Flip him." Hyun-soo laughed and tried to overturn the tube. Sang-yeop resisted, pleading for them to stop. Hyun-soo called to Eun-hae, "I can't flip him, it's too heavy, help me." By now, Sang-yeop was panicking, his fear obvious, but instead of stopping, Hyun-soo kept pushing him further into the deep water. The group started chanting the Jaws theme. Hyun-soo shook the tube, acting as if he was going to flip it over. Sang-yeop was overwhelmed and begging for them to stop. His distress was clear, yet they continued. Eun-hae and Hyun-soo seemed to take pleasure in testing his limits, bullying him, ignoring this obvious fear. After several minutes of this, they finally stopped. Sang-yeop insisted he wasn't having any fun, and the group reluctantly returned to shore, laughing off his distress. An hour after the earlier incident in the water, The group moved to the parking lot to dry off. Hyun-soo suggested cutting open the watermelon they had bought, but they quickly realized they had forgotten a knife. Instead of finding another way, Hyun-soo proposed a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide who would smash it open with their head. The group eagerly agreed, but it was clear they had already made up their mind who would carry this out. Yoon-hae lost the game of rock, paper, scissors, then turned to her husband and pressured him to do it for her. Under the peer pressure and his wife asking him directly in front of everyone, how could he refuse? Hyun-soo held the watermelon steady as Seong-yup slammed his head into it, cracking it open. While he wasn't seriously injured, the act was humiliating, another moment reinforcing the unspoken power dynamic within the group. Yoon-hae and others seemed to laugh and enjoy their control over him. As the evening went on, the sun began settling, and by 8:20 p.m., the darkness was creeping in. Hyun-soo, taking the lead, and two other men in the group, Jun-soo and Hyo-sup, decided to jump from a cliff into the water. The water below was dark, cold, and deep. Seong-yup hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the idea, but the group wasn't having it. The men egged him on, and Yoon-hae joined in. She put on a life vest, taunting him, "If you don't jump in, I will," implying that she was braver than him. Reluctantly, Seong-yup jumped. Moments later, the others resurfaced, but Seong-yup didn't. By 8:24 p.m., Yoon-hae called 119, Korea's emergency number, reporting that her husband had drowned after jumping into the water. The Gapyeong Emergency Department arrived at 8:43 p.m., taking 19 minutes to navigate the narrow single-lane road leading into the valley. A second rescue team from 24 kilometers away arrived at 8:51 p.m. At 9:05 p.m., they found Sang-yup's body and began resuscitation efforts. He had no pulse, no signs of breathing. After 15 minutes of CPR, he was transported to the nearest hospital at 9:22 p.m. They transferred him again to a larger hospital, where he was officially declared dead at 10 p.m. The autopsy confirmed the cause of death: drowning. Yoon-hae told emergency responders that after realizing Seong-yup wasn't resurfacing, she had thrown another inner tube into the water, hoping he would grab onto it. But the water was too dark to see anything. She also mentioned that her husband hated swimming, but had come on this trip to make her happy. But as the investigation progressed, witness testimonies and physical evidence would contradict her version of events and showed a form of bullying that only got worse over months. 5 months after Seong-yup's death, in December 2019, Yoon-hae filed a claim against her late husband's life insurance policy. The payout, a staggering 800 million won, roughly $600,000. But Shinhan Life Insurance rejected her claim. The company had reason to suspect foul play. Their investigators flagged several irregularities, the most alarming of which was the timing of Seong-yup's death. The life insurance policy had been signed in August 2017 and was set to expire on June 1, 2019, just 4 hours after he died. Yoon-hae, enraged by the rejection, took her frustrations online. She accused the insurance company of corporate corruption and fraudulent practices, and went so far as to contact Unanswered Questions, a hard-hitting investigative television show on SBS. The program was known for uncovering scandals, exposing criminals, and making national headlines. But its methods were sometimes controversial, and its reputation for sensationalizing crime made it both respected and feared. Her email, subject line bold and accusatory, "Illegal atrocities by large insurance companies are still happening," painted herself as the victim. She claimed she had been married to Seong-yup for 8 years, but his death was a sudden accident, and that she was now battling a ruthless insurance company trying to rob her of what was rightfully hers. She pleaded with the show to investigate, confident that media attention would turn the tide in her favor. The production team, intrigued, decided to take a look. Yoon-hae, so desperate to be heard, suddenly vanished. She stopped responding to calls and emails. Days passed, then weeks. The more the team tried to reach her, the more elusive she became. With no further cooperation from Yoon-hae, the production team had no choice but to halt their investigation, at least for the time being. Time passed. The Unanswered Questions production team had long since shelved the case. until something caught their attention. A news article about Xiangyop's death surfaced, describing the circumstances as an unfortunate accident. According to the report, Xiangyop had drowned after jumping into the water, his foot trapped between jagged rocks beneath the surface. But buried within the online comments was a clue that led them on a completely different path. A user accused Eun-hye of collecting a large insurance payout following her husband's death. The same comment hinted at a massive debt looming over her. The production team decided to take another look. Their investigation revealed that Ilsan police station had quietly reopened the case and was now treating it as a possible homicide. Eun-hye wasn't just a grieving widow battling an insurance company, she was now a murder suspect. The police had been tipped off by Shinhan Life Insurance, the same company that had denied her claim. Their concerns about fraud had turned into something darker. A pattern was emerging, and both law enforcement and journalists wanted answers. Determined to uncover the truth, the Unanswered Questions team turned to people who knew Xiangyop best, his family. His older sister painted a picture starkly different from the one Eun-hye had presented. According to her, Xiangyop had been 39 years old at the time of his death, a dedicated employee at a research company for 15 years. He earned a comfortable salary, lived a modest lifestyle, and was known for his kind-hearted nature. Then there was Eun-hye. She was 11 years younger, and Eun-hye had claimed their relationship began when she started working at his company as an intern. She had no university degree, only a high school diploma, but despite her lack of formal qualifications, she had supposedly secured an internship at the firm, or so everyone thought. The truth, no one at the company could even recall Eun-hye ever working there. Xiangyop's former colleagues insisted she had never been an intern. The story of how they met, the foundation of their relationship, was a lie. Despite being together for years, Xiangyop's family had never met Eun-hye's parents. His sister recounted how they had repeatedly asked to arrange a formal meeting, only for Eun-hye to constantly dodge the subject. It was as if she was hiding something or someone. A marriage built on deception, a widow fighting for insurance money, a death that now seemed far from accidental. As investigators dig deeper, a troubling picture of Xiangyop's financial life began to emerge. On paper, he should have been financially stable. His job at a prestigious research firm provided a steady, decent salary, but in reality, he was drowning in debt. In 2018, Xiangyop filed for bankruptcy. His financial records painted a bleak story, a man earning a respectable income yet barely surviving. On paper, he should have been comfortable. His annual salary of 64 million won, around $48,000, was more than enough to sustain a modest lifestyle. And yet, in 2018, he filed for bankruptcy. His bank statements told a devastating story. Month after month, his income drained into the same black hole, Eun-hye. She had convinced him she needed the money to help her parents, to pay off debts. But when Xiangyop's family reached out to Eun-hye's parents, they had never received a single cent from her. When Xiangyop's private text messages were uncovered, they revealed the harsh reality of his life under financial strain. Despite working full-time, he was barely able to afford food. He relied on the free lunch provided at his workplace, often skipping breakfast and dinner. Weekends were even worse, and some days he simply didn't eat. In one heartbreaking text, he begged a friend for just $5. While he starved, Eun-hye thrived. She was living a life far beyond her means, traveling abroad, spending lavishly, and showing no signs of financial distress. Xiangyop was even wearing torn shoes whilst Eun-hye basked in luxury, and this is all with his own money, working as a slave just to please her. And it wasn't like she wasn't aware of Sangyop's dire situation. Investigators found text messages where he begged her for some money so he could prevent the electricity being turned off. And when they looked into his home, they found it almost barren, the fridge with just some leftovers from long back, with barely anything in the house. Then looking into the apartment's CCTV footage, investigators found that just a few days after his death, she had appeared with the same man making fun of Sangyop. Together, they had removed almost anything valuable he had left behind. and none of this was ever returned to his parents. They were financially draining Sang-yup bone dry, even after his death. Sang-yup was so financially broke that he was willing to sell his kidneys in order to survive. In 2019, Eun-hae had registered Sang-yup for 4 separate life insurance policies. The total payout? 800 million won. Given the timing of these policies, paired with his financial desperation, the implications were clear. This wasn't just an unfortunate accident, this was premeditated. Sang-yup's family organized traditional funeral rites to mourn his passing. Friends, colleagues, and loved ones gathered to say their final goodbyes. But as they spoke to those who knew him, they uncovered another shocking truth. Sang-yup had a child, or so they thought. The family learned for the first time that Eun-hae had a 9-year-old daughter, a child from a previous relationship. Just a year before his death, Sang-yup had legally adopted her. Sang-yup had played virtually no role in the child's life. There were no family photos, no father-daughter moments. To those closest to him, it was as if the adoption had been purely transactional. Then came Eun-hae's bizarre behavior at the funeral. She attended alone. Her daughter was nowhere to be seen. None of her family members showed up either, and she offered no explanation. And then, just a month later, Eun-hae's social media painted an unsettling contrast. While Sang-yup's family was deep in mourning, she was posting selfies, lounging poolside, enjoying lavish vacations. Yes, people grieve differently, but Eun-hae's actions raised alarms. Meanwhile, the Ilsan police station had made another discovery. Eun-hae had tried to kill Sang-yup before. 3 months before his death, she attempted to poison him with pufferfish toxin, a substance so lethal that even a minuscule dose could prove fatal. Somehow he survived, but it was clear his death at Gapyeong Valley could not have been an accident. It had been premeditated murder. With all the mounting evidence, a warrant was out for Lee Eun-hae and Jo Hyun-soo's arrest. In December 2021, just as the walls were closing in, the two fled into hiding. The entire nation was watching. Their faces were plastered across the news stations. Authorities released public wanted posters, urging citizens to report any sightings, and for months they eluded capture. Then, on April 3, 2022, the first break came. A tipster reported spotting a woman resembling Eun-hae at a subway station. Then, a former associate of Hyun-soo stepped forward. Hyun-soo had previously worked at an illegal brothel where he first met Eun-hae. Eun-hae had convinced Sang-yup to invest in illegal sports betting, leading to crippling financial losses. Finally, on April 16, 2022, after 17 days on the run, Eun-hae and Hyun-soo were found in hiding in an office tel in Goyang. They had been living off cash, using burner phones, and avoiding the outside world. Neither resisted. Their days of running was over. With Eun-hae in custody, the full extent of her crimes began to surface. A 339-page investigative report exposed a shocking financial scheme. For years, Eun-hae had methodically drained Sang-yup of every penny. 210 million won had been siphoned. The money was funneled into accounts belonging to Eun-hae, Hyun-soo, her father, and even 3 friends. By June 2018, Sang-yup's debt had ballooned to 128 million won. Experts believe that Sang-yup had been psychologically broken. 5 months before his death, in January 2019, he texted Hyun-soo saying, "I just want to be respected by Eun-hae. It's too hard being ignored and verbally abused." Eun-hae's cruelest tactic, bringing Hyun-soo along wherever she spent time with her husband, breaking down his self-worth. By the time he died, he was a shell of a man he once was. Once investigators peeled back the layers, they found that Sang-yup wasn't the only victim. Eun-hae had been orchestrating insurance scams for years. September 2017, just 6 months after marrying Sang-yup, she traveled to Japan with another man. While there, she falsely reported her travel bag had been stolen and collected 1.5 million won in insurance. On May 2019, she used the same scam in Macau, claiming another theft and cashing in 2 million won. On April 2019, she signed up for a new insurance policy in Sang-yup's name. And then on June 2019, Just 2 months later, he was dead, and she collected 1.3 million won. 850 investigation records and 41 witnesses called to testify. Yet despite the overwhelming evidence, Eun-hye remained defiant. She never apologized to Sang-yeop's family. She showed no remorse. She sat through the trial with a cold, expressionless demeanor. Medical examiners revealed that Sang-yeop had foam in his lungs, a telltale sign that he had struggled to breathe, desperately fighting to keep his head above the water before drowning. It was irrefutable proof that he hadn't just sunk silently, as Eun-hye had claimed. Her story, that he had gotten his foot caught between rocks and slipped under without a sound, was a lie. Eun-hye and Hyun-soo had lured Sang-yeop into the water, knowing he was a weak swimmer. No one tried to save him. It was cold, calculated murder. And the motive? Money. Her plan had always been to dispose of him once he was no longer useful. Born in 1991, Lee Eun-hye was an only child raised in a poor household. Her parents, both disabled, relied on government subsidies to survive. Life was difficult, but for the first few years, Eun-hye appeared to live an ordinary life. Then, something changed. By middle school, neighbors began noticing her erratic behavior. She frequently ran away from home. July 2006, at 15 years old, Eun-hye and her friend engaged in prostitution with a man. While victims due to their age, this also marked the beginning of a long criminal history. Between 2008 and early 2009, she repeatedly committed crimes throughout Incheon metropolitan city. Her method was simple but effective. She would lure men to motels, pretending to agree to conditional encounters. Once inside, she would wait for them to shower. Then, she would steal their money, wallets, and valuables. By the time authorities caught up with her, she had stolen around 4 million won, approximately $3,000. On May 16, 2009, at 18 years old, Eun-hye was finally arrested and sent to the juvenile department. Since 15 years had passed, according to Korean law, her juvenile records were automatically destroyed. No one could say for sure what she had received, but one thing was clear: Lee Eun-hye had been a manipulator, thief, and liar long before she met Sang-yeop, and now her past had finally caught up with her. By 2010, at just 19 years old, Lee Eun-hye was pregnant. But if anyone expected motherhood to change her, they were mistaken. Even while carrying a child, she continued her reckless and dangerous lifestyle. She was a regular at nightclubs, known for instigating fights and getting into violent altercations with other customers. Her aggression eventually caught up with her. She was investigated for assault. Then, on January 15, 2011, she gave birth to a daughter. The father's child? A former boyfriend who would never live to see his child. That same year, he died in a tragic accident at an intersection in Incheon. The circumstances of his death remain shrouded in mystery. Police never uncovered detailed records of the crash. Whether it was an accident or something more sinister remains an unanswered question. But one fact is undeniable. This would not be the last time a man close to Eun-hye would die under suspicious circumstances. By 2014, Eun-hye had moved on to other relationships, this time with her common-law fiancé, known only as Lee Mo. The couple had plans to marry. Then came the trip to Pattaya, Thailand. It was meant to be a romantic getaway. Instead, it turned into a fatal excursion. While snorkeling, Lee Mo drowned. An autopsy confirmed water in his lungs and detected a small amount of alcohol in his system. The official ruling? Accidental drowning. But something didn't sit right. His cell phone was missing. It was never recovered. His family, not Eun-hye, received the insurance payout. And this was the second time a man romantically involved in Eun-hye had died under mysterious circumstances. At the time, authorities found no direct evidence of foul play. But in hindsight, Lee Mo's death looked eerily similar to what would later happen to Yoon Sang-yeop. By now, Eun-hye had perfected the art of deception. She was a master of luring men, using them, and discarding them when they were no longer useful. Multiple sources, including testimonies from former acquaintances, suggested that Eun-hye's live-in boyfriend, Jo Hyun-soo, was more than just a lover. He was her pimp. Operating what was essentially a one-person prostitution business, Jo Hun-soo managed Eun-hae's clients, controlled her earnings, and facilitated her encounters. Given her history, dating back to her teenage years of engaging in conditional encounters, it was presumed that she continued to work this line of work well into adulthood, even after meeting Sang-yup, even after marrying him. Eun-hae later claimed that she met Sang-yup through a chance encounter. The truth? She likely met him the same way she met so many others, through a paid sexual encounter arranged via an online chat room. The report suggested this happened around 2007 or 2008. By March 2017, the two had officially registered their marriage. By April 2022, just weeks after Lee Eun-hae's arrest, a shocking and disturbing trend emerged online. On KakaoTalk, South Korea's most popular messaging app, fan chat rooms dedicated to defending and glorifying Eun-hae began to appear. One such group, which had around 30 participants, a message was pinned to the top chat: "Hate the sin, but not the sinner." Another chat room showed crime is not important. Your face is important. If you're pretty, everything is forgiven. While Eun-hae was idolized, her accomplice, Jo Hun-soo, was mocked and ridiculed. He was branded a loser, a pawn, a disposable sidekick. The amount of simping that was going on online was just disgraceful, at these men throwing themselves at this woman simply because she was attractive. In March 2002, a 6th grade Eun-hae appeared on MBC's Sunday Night Love House. The episode depicted her as a devoted daughter, caring for her disabled parents, earning viewer admiration for her dedication. This, of course, starkly contrasted with her later criminal actions, shocking many who recalled her earlier compassionate image. Sang-yup's family moved to annul Eun-hae's adoption of his daughter and sought to retroactively void the marriage, preventing her from accessing insurance funds. Eun-hae's decision to involve the investigative program unanswered questions backfired, leading to the exposure of her crimes. Ultimately, Eun-hae received a life sentence plus an additional year for evading arrest. Her accomplice, Jo Hun-soo, was sentenced to 30 years in prison plus 1 year for fleeing. On September 21, 2023, the Supreme Court dismissed their appeals, upholding Eun-hae's life sentence and Hyun-soo's 30-year term. And on October 31st, 2024, further appeals were dismissed. Thanks for watching, guys. Please remember to like and subscribe and pick one of the other videos on screen that might interest you. Victor out.